Welcome to another Felt Alive video workshop. Today we're going to learn how to make needle felted jack-o'-lanterns. Very simple project. It's great for beginners. Gives you a great introduction to soft sculptural needle felting. The supplies you need are very basic for this. It doesn't take a lot. What you're going to need is a foam felting pad. Mine's about 9.5 by 11. I have another little one that's cut on top. That's just to help me keep everything centered in the middle so you can make sure to always see what I'm doing. You don't need this little one on top. You just need a nice size felting pad. They're fairly dense, high density foam. They're really great. They last a long time. Let's see, the next thing you need is felting needles. I happen to sell my super duper felting needles that I have adapted. I've adapted felting needles that they come from the factory with these little L-shaped ends that are all ready to go into an industrial felting machine. Not so ready to be held onto and used to sculpt with. This end can be uncomfortable to hold onto, and it's also a little bit slippery. It's hard to get a good grip on that. So what I've done is I've adapted these, my favorite gauges. They come in different gauges, and we'll talk about that throughout the lessons, but I've dipped them in rubber. That way they're easy to hold on to, the grip is more comfortable, it's not slippery, and I've color coded them so I can tell what needle I'm grabbing in an instant, because they all tend to look alike even though they're different gauges and have different purposes. So I sell them in sets of 6. It's I only use 1 gauge at a time. It's good to have spares because they're very fragile and they break easy. And the other tool is a sewing needle. I have a long sewing needle. I need it long, sharp, and strong. I never put thread in the end because I don't sew at all in my Felt Alive sculptures. This is just for manipulating the wool, stretching it, pulling it, helping to get it where you want it to go. So I keep one of each gauge needle on my felting pad. I try to keep it off to the side because it's easy to break them while they're sitting there at rest. I'll probably show you how I break them by breaking one throughout the lessons. Let's see, the next thing we need is wool. I use wool batting. Wool batting, think of quilt batting. It comes in big sheets. This is Dream Felt Premium Wool Batting. It comes from the Norwegian breed of sheep and it's classified as C1. It's grown on the sheep only through the summer months, so the fiber is shorter than what you would find on a typical Norwegian sheep that the wool grows throughout the whole winter. What I like about it is it pulls apart really easy. It pulls off the bat. The fibers are coarse and crimpy and they felt really quickly with a felting needle. So this is one of my favorite types of wool to use for needle felting. It felts fast with the needle and it has a nice finished texture. Now my jack-o'-lanterns, the models were made out of Dream Felt Economy batting. This isn't quite as lustrous as the premium batting, but it has a great texture to it. It's very easy to felt as well. It pulls off with a little bit more difficulty than the premium batting, but it still works great. It gives sort of a nubby texture, and so you can see that, where this, as we proceed, you're going to see this has a much smoother texture. So it's really your choice on what kind of wool you want to use. I always go for batting. Roving is much much different to work with. Roving comes in long ropes like this, and you'll see that the fibers are all combed nicely. And I don't use this type of wool to sculpt with. I find that it leaves grooves from all those long organized fibers. Batting is unorganized, so the fibers shrink altogether. They shrink from all directions. Where the fibers shrink along these lines. So you get a better sculpted piece by using batting. I have this just simply to use for these nice lines. And to outline the features. So that's why I have merino roving here on my felting table, and I just chose a nice color that contrasts with the batting that I chose. And the other thing I need is some batting. I need a little bit of batting for the stem and some for the color behind the eyes. If you want it to look like there's a candle glowing inside, get a bright yellow color. If you want it to look dark, you can get a dark brown, or even a black would look nice. I recommend batting again for that. For the main body of your jack-o'-lantern, I suggest anywhere from ½ an ounce to, I'd say go for 3/4 of an ounce to an ounce of wool. You just don't want to cut yourself short when you're needle felting, so it's always good to err on the side of purchasing too much. You'll always be able to use it. And this is a very small amount. This is maybe a quarter, maybe not even a quarter of an ounce. It's just a few grams of wool here, and for the green as well. It doesn't take much. It's nice to have lots of colors around for these types of things. So, getting started, we need to take this batting and get it into a shape that's going to be a pumpkin and then turn into a jack-o'-lantern. For nearly everything I needle felt, I start out by making a basic egg shape. Eggs seem to turn into everything, including my felt alive dogs, my pups, all my projects start out with eggs. So it's the first lesson I always teach in every class is how to make an egg. So we're going to set this guy aside for now, and I'm going to show you how to take this big bunch of batting and turn it into an egg. Now you could just squish it together and start poking, and eventually you may get an egg shape. You're going to work for hours and hours at it. What you want to do is organize this into small sheets so that you can form it into an egg while pressing the air out and then needle it. That keeps you from needle felting it too long. So let me show you what I mean. To pull off workable size sheets off this batting, I'm just going for a nice section that I can grab hold of. And you see how I grab hold with the whole side of my hand? If I pull like this, we're going to pull off long strips. So I don't want to pull like that. I just want to gently pull it off. If it's too difficult to pull, it means your hands are too close. Spread them out a little bit more and you'll be able to pull more off. So what I'm doing is pulling off these sheets of wool. If I lay them in my hand, you can see they're roughly the size of my hand. I don't want wool that's hanging off my hand like so, that's got messy stuff on it. I want nice little organized sheets. A little teeny bit of fluff's not going to hurt hanging off, but so I'm going to start out with 4 sheets of wool, roughly the size of my hand. Now, if your sheets are thicker than mine or thinner than mine, let's see, it's hard to tell exactly how thick they are. Let's see some keys. I can't see my fingers through them. You can get them very thin and you can see your fingers through them. But you don't want that. And if they stretch out too long, just rip them apart and stack them right up. So, roughly the size of your hand. There's 1. Let's see, that one's good. There's 2, 3, and 4. So now I want to take these sheets of wool, and like I mentioned, I want to form them into an egg while compressing all the air out. And then you're going to need your yellow needle ready. The yellow needle is the 40 gauge triangle. This is my workhorse. I use it often. It's what I do it's my all-purpose felting needle. It is a fine gauge needle. 40 gauge is the finest gauge I use. So it's pretty fragile. So as we go, I'll show you some tips for keeping this needle from breaking. Breaking your needles is kind of sad because you need them to felt. So try very hard to follow my instructions to keep these needles from breaking. And make sure you have spares because inevitably they break. So what I want to do is I want to hold this in my left hand, and I'm just, you see how I've got it held? There's my thumb buried there. What I want to do is just take now my right hand and just pull and stretch these fibers right over. I pulled my thumb out of there. I'm getting another grip here. So you can see there's a nice fold there. If you let it go, it just goes right back into its shape and you have to start over. So again, I'm going to pull it right over, get my thumb out of there. So now it's in my right hand, and I'm going to just gently pull. It's kind of a stretching. By smoothing your palm and your thumb right across there, it's stretching these fibers around rather than just folding them over. You want to get these fibers towards the middle of what's going to be the egg. So just stretch them and pull them. Get your thumb out of the way there. Now I've switched hands. Now, so I've gone from the left side. Now I'm going to go from the right side. Now the right side is going to become the thin end of the egg. So you'll see how it's this shape of your hand is actually what forms this egg shape. So it's kind of neat how it goes. This part's tricky, so if you feel frustrated, you're not alone. Most people are a little bit frustrated when they're first learning how to make eggs. The thing is to hold on to it without making your knuckles white. You don't want to hurt yourself, but you don't want to let this wool pop back out and all that air will jump right back in there. So here I go. I'm going to kind of rolling and stretching and get my thumb out of there so I can hold on to it. So I've gone over once from the middle, once from the left, once from the right. So now I'm going to go over from the middle again. And this time I'm going to get my thumb out of there before I bury it. And from the left now. And again to the right. And I'm really stretching these fibers, making them wrap around themselves, almost just making them wrap around themselves. So here I go now over again to the middle. Let's see, I'm going to pull some of these over. I don't have any left on this side, and I have this tail right here. Now this tail is going to form the middle of the egg shape. I'm going to pull it right along. And so I have this tail and I'm pulling it. I want to stretch it pretty tight. I don't want this shape to have a bunch of air in it. Now look at that. It doesn't look exactly like an egg, but we're getting there. So I haven't let it go. If I let it go, I have to start all over. So what I'm going to do, here's the end of that little tail right under my finger. So I want to lay this down on the pad, holding it down. Don't let that tail go. And you want to take your yellow needle and start poking. Now when you start poking, you don't need to go any deeper than the blade. You can see where the shaft ends and the blade begins. You don't need to go any deeper than that. And when you poke in, pull it out at the same angle. You can poke in at any angle as long as you pull it out at the same angle. So I'm just going above my fingertips here. I don't want to stab my fingertips because I will bleed and it will hurt. So that's no good. So what I'm doing essentially here is just tangling that tail of this wrap that I brought around, tangling that right into the wool beneath it, and that's going to make it hold its shape. So you see I'm just kind of going around a little bit. When I go this way, I pull out this way. I don't want to go this way because guess what? See that? I will stab myself. So always be aware of the direction your needle is going in relation to your fingertips. So once you've gone over that a few times, see I'm pulling my fingers back as I go. Now I've needled that enough to keep this shape from, I've tangled these up and it can't expand again. So now it's a matter of needle felting this shape until all of these loose fibers, see that? Until you've gone over it and you can't pick up these fibers anymore. So just felt along with me here, and I'll give you pointers as we go. What I do is I tend to keep my hand in the same place and move the shape instead. Gives me more control of the needle. If I try to move the needle all over like this, I'm gonna stab myself. So it's best to move the shape. So I'm going to work on this thin end of the egg. You see if I hold it like just like that. And it allows me to taper it more. If you see how I'm rolling it along. And I'm really just keeping my hand in one place. I actually have it rested here on my pad. You don't need to poke hard. Some people start out poking really hard and they hold their whole hand up and they hold on to the needle really tight. You tend to stab yourself, and when you stab yourself harder than if you're just giving it nice relaxed strokes. And also, if you keep if you don't grip it too tight, it keeps you from hurting yourself as bad. So just hold on enough to keep it from slipping. Just give it a nice. I recommend developing a nice light touch with this needle. I'm trying to relax with it in your hands. So if you see what I'm doing, I'm just rolling it around while I'm stabbing it. And the stabbing is tangling the fibers and turning those wool fibers into felted fibers. This crunching sound, I love the crunching sound. It's part of the whole ambiance, maybe you might call, of felting. It's part of the whole experience. It's kind of a neat sound. So here, the ends tend to be a little bit looser than the middle, so they need a little bit more work. So I'm just keeping my fingers well away from where that needle's going. So I'm going to go over this a couple more times. I'm focusing more from one half out to the thinner end of the egg. And then I'm going to turn it over and give some attention to the other side. So it's getting harder to pluck these fibers up off the surface, but I can still do it. I don't want to do that, so it takes a little while. You probably will wind up rolling this egg around and poking at it for about 10 minutes. And you'll notice it starts shrinking on you. And that is what happens when you felt wool fibers, is they shrink. They tangle together. And the fibers themselves don't shrink, they just tangle together and compact more tightly together. So that's getting nice. So now this side's a little bit rough looking, so I want to just start on this end. Now this is looking kind of like a long skinny egg shape. Well, and if you go into the pumpkin patch to pick out your pumpkin for a jack-o'-lantern, you'll likely find them in all different shapes and sizes. So I always shopped for mine by seeing which would make the funniest face and a great shape that had a great surface to put a face into. So So we'll get there, and if we want to make it fatter, I will show you how to do that. And if you decided you wanted a much bigger pumpkin, I wouldn't suggest starting out with more than, we started out with 4 sheets of wool. Go for 5 at the most. Beyond that, it's difficult to work with, and it's easier to add to this egg than it is to try to start out with a lot of wool. So you'll see that I'm just rolling this around like I did the other side. Kind of going in a systematic pattern here. You'll see these holes too, and those relax out. This premium felting bat here is really nice. Well, it doesn't show many holes at the very end. If you tried to do this with, say, merino roving, those fibers are so fine that the needle holes seem to always show, even in a finished piece. And it takes a lot longer to tangle all those really fine fibers together with the needle. So I recommend using some kind of a coarse batting. See how nice that's getting? we can still pluck some of these fibers off. It just means I haven't felted enough in those spots. You don't want to be able to scratch them off and fluff them up. So again, probably give yourself at least 10 minutes to go over it. Now if you think at this point that your shape is too small, we will fix that before we keep felting too much, because we're just going to have to felt over the top of that. So I want to make my shape a little bit fatter. So what I need is another sheet of wool roughly the size of my hand. So I'm going to pull that off. And oh, I want mine really fat, so I'm going to go for 2 sheets. See how I'm kind of pulling that apart? So, just like I did, if you see me turn it over, you can see this side kind of has some little swirls, and this side is nice and smooth. I want the nice and smooth side on the outside. So I want to hold that in my hand and lay this egg shape right on it. So just like I started before, I formed this wool around this egg just like I did form the original egg, only I have this shape to hold on to. So I've stretched it over once on that side, once right over the top. Now I'm going to go to the left. Now I'm going to just wrap this around. And again, I had that tail, so I need to get that down first. And you can keep adding a couple sheets of wool at a time until you like the shape. If you want the bottom really fat, just add the sheet to the bottom and don't try to make it cover the whole egg. So all that needling I did underneath is covered now, so I have to go over this whole entire surface again. So I would suggest, if you want to add more before you do too much needling. So I'm going to show you a couple tricks here for hiding these folds and seams as soon as we get all these loose fibers attached. So I've been going over this egg for about 10 minutes now, and it's getting pretty good. Can't scratch any of those fibers off, but you can see I have a couple little seams here. We've been working with this yellow needle with the 40 gauge triangle. I want to show you how to take out seams with this red needle. This is a 38 star, and this one has more blades. The triangle has a triangle shaped blade. This one has a star shaped blade. It's very hard to see. You'd have to get a magnifying glass. But these little barbs, there's more of these little barbs because there's more blades, there's more barbs, and they start closer to the surface. So this is great for surface felting. I'll show you how to see this seam right here? We're going to get that right out. What I'm doing is I'm taking really short, close jabs with this needle. I'm holding it nearly parallel to the surface. And I'm starting it, pointing it towards me, and then working my way backwards. And that will start to smooth out that seam. To turn around and work from the other way. Now, here we go. And if that doesn't work, you don't want to work on that too long. If that doesn't work, it's taking it out. For the most part, I can see a little bit. I'd work over that a little bit more. But if that doesn't work, it's real easy to cover any little seam with just a really thin, see how thin that is? With a really thin piece of wool. Then you would just want to needle it right down over it with your yellow needle. And you have to go over it enough so where you can't scratch it off the surface again. So the less wool you have to add, the better. It's better to try to fix it first because it saves you a lot of this extra needling. But those are two ways that I cover little seams. So this this is looking like an egg shape or a potato or something similar. I want to get it into more of a jack-o'-lantern shape. I want it to be able to sit on its own. And right now it can't. So this is a use for this black needle. This is a coarse 36 triangle needle. And I use this for deep needle felting, for attaching parts together, and for reshaping the wool. So this is kind of a neat thing here. I'm turning over the fat ends on right here under my fingers, this thinner ends up here. Both ends are kind of thick right now, but that's okay. It's a pumpkin. So what I'm doing is I'm squishing this. You see how much air is still left in there. It's still fairly pliable. It's kind of like a piece of clay right now. Fairly pliable. So what I want to do is take my hands and use my fingers to flatten out that bottom. I'm going to squish it right down onto the pad. I'm going to take this black needle and stick it right in the middle. And the blade, and the tip of the needle somewhere inside, deep in the middle. I don't want to go all the way through. But I'm doing this jiggling action. This is tangling the fibers deep in the middle of the egg. And it'll help it keep its shape. It kind of shrunk it down to a shorter shape, see? And now, it didn't take much to do that. Now I just want to take my yellow needle and go back and forth, and I want to flatten this bottom out. This will help this little pumpkin to stand up a little better. So just back and forth. You see here, I'm holding my finger right near the end where the blade stops. I find myself doing that. It sort of acts like a stop. See there, I can't go any deeper. I don't want to go any deeper. I really want to focus it right here. You don't have to hold your finger there. I just find myself doing that sometimes. So work up the edges just a little bit. And see if it will stand. Yes, it will. So I want it to get a little more pointed tip. Just a little more of a pointed tip. So I want to just pinch it. Remember I said it's kind of like clay at this point, but the thing is once you squish clay, it stays there. With wool, it'll expand back out into whatever shape you've needled it into. So you need to squish it and then needle it. So I squished it, and now I'm going to go along and taper this a little bit before it all expands out. You usually have a minute or so, not even a minute, maybe 15 or 20 seconds before it expands back out. That gives you enough time to start working on that shape. So I'm just rolling it along. Okay. So if it's still too tall, you can do that same jiggling action from the other side. I'll show it to you from the side to see what I mean. I'm not pulling it out, and this is the only needle that I recommend doing this with because it's stronger. It's a thicker gauge needle, and so you can stick it in and change angles. You have to be careful, and if you feel too much resistance, then you could break your needle. So see, I left one hole, and that's going to get covered with the stem eventually, so I'm not too worried about that. But I just want to make sure that I've felt it around that now that I've squished it down a little bit. So now I have a nice little shape that I can start thinking about where I want the face. So I say right there, it's a simple thing on this shape here. And what I did is I went and I used the internet and my old friend Google image search, and I searched for jack-o'-lantern faces. I found so many amazing faces, some pretty scary looking ones, some that weren't faces at all. They were more scenes, like haunted house scenes cut in, pretty elaborate. But what I did is I just got some ideas for some faces. Now you can do the traditional, you can do it however you want. And I'm just going to freestyle it and show you here. So what I do is I take my yellow needle, and let's start out with the mouth. What I'm actually going to do is just take this needle and draw the mouth shape right in. If you can see, Just going to go back and forth as you move along. I'm going to make this a happy jack-o'-lantern again. And I'm just drawing the mouth in. Now there's a smile, but I want it to look cut out, so I'm drawing another outline. Cut that out, please. So I've got a smile drawn in. Now I just want to take in between those lines and just gently flatten out the wool in the middle. That'll give you a place to put the color on. That'll make it look like the light shining from inside the pumpkin, or a dark color if you want it to look like the lights are off in there. So there's the smile. Now I want to make a little nose. Let's see, maybe just a little triangle nose. It's kind of hard to see right now. We are going to fill it in. We are going to put this yellow in. It'll really, really pop. So now let's get some kind of eyes. Let's see this one, how do we do it? Pretty basic. Just draw in the eye shape that you like. And fill in the places that you're going to put the light that's shining through. The eyes are a little bit harder to see as you're going, but if you goof up and you don't like what you did, take your sewing needle and just start scratching that surface. And see how I'm pulling it right out there? That line, that eye has totally disappeared. And I can start over. Kind of hard to see what I'm doing, I betcha. I'm just getting some eye shapes. The eyes are the hardest to outline for me. Go back into the nose. You want these to be sunk in a little bit because you want it to look like it's been cut right out of the pumpkin. So there I have a basic face. We have a lot of room to play with that shape still, to play with those features. We just needed to get some basic outlines to start filling in. So now I need my bright colored wool. I got some nice yellow here. You see how I just pulled off, I just need thin pieces. I just pulled off a little bit with my hand, my fingers there, and you can see your fingers right through those. So I want to even break that up even smaller. And what I'm going to do, let's start with the mouth. I'm laying it right over the whole mouth shape. And you can feel in there where you've felted it flat, where you've gotten it ready. So go ahead and just lay it on there and start in the middle of this the flattened area. And just start going over it, just to tack that down. And pull it up here right into this corner of the smile, and I'm just going to keep tacking it down, starting in the very center. And all these fibers are going to start shrinking up right into this shape. See, they're already doing it right here. And you can take your needle and gently pull these needles those fibers right over. What you want to be careful of is not to get too much wool and build this up. You don't want this yellow bulging out at all. if it feels like it's really thick, just tear it off and start over. It's really forgiving. You can easily tear off anything or fix any mistake. It's better to try before you've gone too far. So as long as you had a nice thin sheet of wool, it should be okay. Now I see more of my outline there, so I might have to get a little more wool, or not. I can pull that out if I like it. Cut that last part out, please. So I'm just going to keep going over it. Taking really short little jabs. I don't want to sink this in too much, but I want it nice and tightly felted. Now if you get to this point and decide you maybe want some teeth or something, see here where I outlined right down to there, I'm going to pull that right out. So if you didn't draw in any teeth shapes, it's not too late. All you do is take a little bit of your orange, and I mean a little bit, like a fingertip full, and see I just folded it over just a couple times, and now I'm going to put it right where I think I want that tooth shape to be. See the fluffies there? I don't want that many fluffies, so I'm going to hold on real tight and pressing my finger into there while I trim. Just take my other hand and pull off those little bit of fluffies, and then just gently tack those in. You don't want to felt that too much. You want it to look like it's raised up. Okay, so there you have a cute little tooth. You can do another one. Let me just do another one and show you again. So what I did is I took about a fingertip full of wool, then really gently just fold it over the top, then from one side to the other. Clean up a little bit of that right now, and let's put it right there. I didn't have as many fibers on that side, so it's kind of looking messy, so I just want to take and clean up this line. Clean up these lines with my needle. And we're going to outline that still, so it's not finished yet. So you can do as many teeth as you want. Now I'm going to fill in the nose with some yellow. So that's going to take such a teeny bit. So I'm just kind of rubbing it just a little bit. This is going to compact, this is going to concentrate this color down because it's such a small little space. So again, just lay it right over the nose. Start in the very center and just work your way right into those outlines. Taking really shallow strokes. That was that fast. And again for the eyes, just a little bit. That concentrating, it saves you a little bit of needling. It's harder to concentrate with longer shape, but clean that up a little bit. So lay that out, start in the middle, and work your way along that outline. And on this one, you can do the same thing like I did with the teeth. You can add those later if you didn't get them drawn in, if you want those little curved areas that make it look like eyeballs. See, I went back and started working on the teeth. I tend to do that. I jump around. If I see something that bugs me, I just fix it. Okay, last eye. Concentrate it and then pull off the ratty ends. Pretty easy. So I want to make those little eyeball, these little areas right here. So just like I did for those teeth, fold it, give yourself a nice clean edge. Hold on, pull that excess off. See, I hold, when I put it down onto the eye shape, I just hold it so that fold doesn't come out. See, I just give the eye shape a little more definition. Again, I just want to fold that so we have a nice clean edge there. Pull off that excess. Lay it right down where I want it and gently felt it into position. Whoops, a little bit extra fuzzy there. Go over all those areas where I had the extra loose fuzz. I don't want the face fuzzy after all that needling we did on that egg shape. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is outline these. I'll clean up my work surface here. I'm all done with the orange and I'm all done with the yellow. So the next thing I'm going to need is that long rope of merino roving. So what the idea is to define the lines. You can see on this one I didn't finish defining these lines and they sort of disappear. So we'll get there in a minute, but it's just real important to have a contrasting color to define the features. So the first thing I want to do, actually even before I outline the eyes, I want to divide this to make it look more like a pumpkin. So a good way to make yourself a guide is to use this sewing needle. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to squish right into the middle, right straight across. I'm going to kind of cut this, crisscross it like a pie, like how you'd slice a pie. So bear with me here. I'm pushing down with my sewing needle. What I want to do is take my yellow needle and just go, be very careful not to hit that needle. just go over it enough to keep that line in place. See there, that line's in place. So it's going to shrink back because I haven't shrink back. It's going to expand because I haven't needled it enough. So I'm just going to go over it just a couple times, and now I'm going to take it and crisscross it this way. Real gently along there just to keep your line in place. So again, this is just going to make you some nice guidelines to use. So let's do it this way. And then one last time. If you hit the sewing needle with your felting needle, you could easily break your felting needle. So be really careful. Just take really short little jabs. So this one's starting to come out. I can see it there still. So now you have these guidelines. So I want to take and just holding it right straight, that's going to give you the guideline of where to make this groove go down the shape of the pumpkin. So just give yourself some guidelines here. So I'm going to take that off, and I'm going to needle it while I can still see it before it expands out all the way, because it's too hard to needle along that sewing needle. Just follow it right down. Okay, again, let's see, let's go to the opposite side. That seems to work good. Guideline to follow here. There we go. So, let's see, where'd you go, line? There you went. As you compress this wool and make these lines, it kind of pulls your guidelines out of shape. So just get in there every now and then and fix them up. So, this one's going to go right down the middle of the nose. But stop when you get to the edge of the nose. You don't need to sink that into the yellow. If you remember that in a jackliner, would be cut out, so it wouldn't be grooved at all. Just continue to use that line as a guide. Okay, let's go this one. Well, let's go opposite. That helps. Let's switch to the black needle and see if that does any better work getting that in. Sometimes I switch needles. What I don't like about felting with the black needle is there's more resistance when you poke it into the wool, and I feel like you can get repetitive stress injuries that way. This glides right in. Okay, where's that line? It's right there. This black needle actually is good for just getting that line started though. See, I haven't done that before. I've made lots of these little things, but I've never used that black needle for getting this line started. So I learned something new today. Switch up needles sometimes. You may be pleasantly surprised. See, we have one right here now. Whoa. I hit that needle, and if I'd have been using my yellow one, I would have broke it. So should be starting to feel pretty compact right up here at the top of your jack-o'-lantern. So I have one more, well, two more. Let's see, let's go opposite of this one. Did I already do that? There. This one, it gets a little confusing. Okay, right down to the eye. Start right there. Again. This is probably the most labor-intensive part of the whole process. And one more here. But it makes it a very believable pumpkin shape. You can choose not to do it if you don't like doing this, but I recommend doing it. So let's bring all of these lines to meet up on the bottom. There we go. How cute is that? So now, so they don't just disappear, I want to highlight those or give them a sense of depth with some merino roving. This is perfect for this because it's already it's in these nice long ropes, and so I just use nice long strings to go right down along those lines. So what I want to do is, keeping my fingers spread apart, I just want to pull some of that off. And that's still pretty thick. I don't want a lot, but I want to, it's not quite long enough for me, so I want to draft these apart. That's what this is called. When you separate the fibers without pulling them apart all the way, is drafting. You have to release the grip on your fingertips as you pull. So now I just want to get this long string into a workable, these long fibers into a workable string or a thread or a yarn or something. I don't want to twist it, but I don't want to spin it into a yarn is what I'm saying. See there, I'm twisting it. I don't want twisted wool, I just want it felted, basically. Making a felted yarn here. It's not twisted, it's not spun, it's just condensed together. So let's clean off that end and let's see. Let's start right up here at the beginning. Now hold on to this end. Hold on to it as you go and just place that right where you started that groove. Let's see, I'm going to switch to my red needle for this because it has more barbs and it's going to grab these merino fibers a little easier and will let me not, I don't want to work too deeply here. So there, I'm going to hold it with my thumb now as I just work it into that groove. Now if I don't like, if it's not seeming to grab those fibers very good, and I'm back to my trusty yellow. You'll see that I do switch up my needles a lot. Even the humidity in the room can make a difference in how the needle grabs the fibers, so don't be afraid to switch your needles. If one's not feeling too effective for you, just switch it up right onto the bottom. So let me show you a little different here. I'm going to draft these apart again. You don't need as long a ones when you're going down these ones because you're going to have to when you're going down the ones over the eye shapes and stuff, we're going to have to stop and restart. So you need shorter yarns or lines or whatever you want to call them. So let's again start right up here in the middle. If you don't hold on to it, watch what's happened. See here, all this messes up, so you want to hold on to it so it doesn't mess up. And if you have a little sharp pair of scissors, little embroidery scissors handy, go ahead and snip that off. If not, I'm just going to pull it apart. I grabbed a hold of it with my fingernails and I held tight to where it was felted, to where I'd already stabbed it in. Now I'm just going to tuck those loose ones right up there. So there's that little chunk I ripped off, so I can break it apart and make one that will fit right there. It's definitely not any rocket science. It's pretty simple. So go ahead and finish all those lines, and then we're going to outline the face. So I've gone around. I've put definition in all of the lines. It's important that you can't see the roving laying on it anywhere. Sometimes it wants to pull off as it shrinks. So just make sure to when you've gotten it all done, just to give it another check to make sure that this isn't happening. See here? The roving just wasn't needled in that spot. So once all that is done, we need to continue with these little lines. Probably getting a little bit tired of making these little lines by now, but we just need some to define the features. So I'm just rolling it around, doing what I can to keep these. I just don't want to see all the separate fibers here. I don't want to have to needle it so much, and that just starts the felting process. So I want to clean up these ratty looking ends. Starting in the corner of the mouth, if you see how I'm holding on to that tail, I don't want to mess up that nice little strip of roving I've made. So whichever needle you feel works the best for you here. I feel like I get the most control with this yellow needle, so I use it a lot. So I just turn it over, make sure that you're comfortable wherever you're working. And I'm holding it now with this thumb here. And what I'm doing is I'm just outlining it. I wouldn't try to wrap this whole piece of roving around the outline and then start needling it. You can see what I'm getting at. Because what happens is it shrinks and it'll pull right over this yellow. So you would just want to let it shrink as you go, and you'll control where that line is. Keep hold of that tail though. I forget sometimes to let it go, and then my little line is a little messy, and I have to work a little harder to get it needled into shape. So turn it. Now I don't try to make a yarn that I know is going to fit exactly. You can see there, you can see some yellow around right there. I don't want that, so before I get too much further, let's just even take the sewing needle and pull that line right up there. And let's get around this little tooth. So, make myself another line. Let's see, I'm going to tear that apart. Again, you can use little scissors to tear those apart if you don't. A lot of people don't have the strength in their fingers to tear wool apart. It's not too tough, those fine little fibers of merino, these thin little yarns, but they can be stubborn to tear. So I usually have a small pair of embroidery scissors next to me, but this day I don't seem to have them there. I'll have to track those down. I need them so seldom, but when I need them, they're quite handy, so they're good to have around. And I'll show you a case in point in one moment here, where you should have them. So I could snip that off, I could tear it off, or since I see that this little line here is kind of thin, I'm just going to keep following this outline right along here. So just like that, repeat for the eyes, and then all we have left to do is make the stem. So the yellow shape is sunken in. We have a nice outline that's sunken in as well, sunken in meaning that the pumpkin shape is bulging out over it, which makes it look like it was cut. So once you get that shape all outlined, go ahead and go over it one more time, all the way around with your felting needle. If you don't like the shape of the mouth, you can see, let's give it a little bigger of a grin. See what I'm doing? I'm sticking the needle right in the corner, I'm putting some pressure, I'm prying on it. The sewing needle, I should say, is what I'm doing it with, because this would break a felting needle about as quick as you could break a felting needle. So I'm just pulling that up, make it a little more of a smile. Making sure that that outline is still outlining. You can't see any yellow edges. Let's see if we can do this one too. See that? So just start needling right down along that needle, the sewing needle. Get it out of there then, once you've given it a few stabs. That made it a little happier. And you can do the same thing with the eyes. You can do the same thing with the eyes once you get there. And see here, I have a little bit of a messed up area. Sewing needle is really handy for fixing things. So go ahead and go around the eyes and the nose. And when we come back, we will do the stem. Okay, we have the features all outlined, and so now we're ready for a stem. So a stem's pretty simple to form. I have a sheet of wool in my hand about the size of my hand. Well, somewhere in there, no bigger than the size of my hand. Stems can be really long and they can be really short and nubby. We're just going to make, let's see, here's mine. About that long. So what I want to do is tear this shape in half one more time and stack those two together. So then, if you remember how we started our egg, we folded it over so we had a nice clean edge there, a nice fold. So we're going to do the same thing. It's on a little smaller scale, so I'm using more of my fingertips than the whole length of my hand. So I'm going to fold this over. I'm going to fold it over twice, and then over from the left, and then to the right. And here I'm just rolling these fibers right around there. So what I got here is the folded parts here, and there's loose fibers here. So I'm going to hold this down on the felting pad, and I want to just start felting the part that's going to be the stem. The very end where you folded. Here I'm pinching it together a little bit more so I don't, the tighter you have these fibers and the more air that you have compacted out, the less you have to sit here and stab at it. So I'm being very careful. It's kind of hard to see on my dark pad, so let me put this yellow under there so you can see a little more contrast. If your dark pad, you're working on a dark project, you can always get a piece of just acrylic craft felt from the craft store and lay it right over your felting pad and use that too. It helps keep your felting pad clean as well. I haven't done that yet, but I know some people that use that technique, putting a piece of felt over their pad, and it works great for them. So that's going to get in my way, so sorry if you can't see that too well. But what the idea is just keep rolling that around till you get a stem. Just a little, yeah, those yellow fibers are sticking in there. I'm doing that. I'm kind of rolling it. It's kind of like clay still. And just keep rolling it around and felting that in. Now you notice that I'm keeping a hold of this fluff. I'm not needling down into this fluff at all. So once I've gone over that and I feel like it's a reasonable stem shape and I can't pull any loose fibers off of this end, it's time to attach it to the head. But I have a lot of excess loose fibers here, so hold on to it tight. And I'm going to clean these fibers up. You can just put them right on your green batting. You'll be able to use all those again. It's not wasting anything. You haven't felted it at all. So I'm just holding on tight to where I already felted and cleaning these ends up. So it's going to lay over the head, over the top of the pumpkin or the jack-o'-lantern. So what you want to do is fan these fibers out. Get everything off my pad. I'm going to lay that right on top. It looks like a cute little hat. So I'm going to take this black needle. I'd mentioned before, it's great for attaching parts together. I'm going to take this and jiggle it, and I'm pushing fibers from the middle of the stem right down into the head or the top of this jack-o'-lantern. So that just tacked it on. It'd pull off pretty easily. So now I want to take my yellow needle, I'm going to compress it down, and I want to start right here at the base of the stem. I want the felted parts to meet the felted part of the stem to meet the felted part of the head. So I'm going down from the stem just a little ways out into the head and pushing it down, going all the way out. I'm not doing anything yet with all those loose fibers. I'm just letting them shrink up towards the stem as I go along and needle this. I want to make sure this is attached really good, so you can see here where I'm just going in kind of at the sideways motion here, holding it right parallel to the stem, but pushing more fibers down into that jack-o'-lantern. We don't want anybody to pull this stem off. You want it to last on there for a long time. So now we have all these loose fibers. And what I recommend is cleaning them up just a little more. Hold on tight to where you felted. You don't want to pull that off, and it can pull off at this point. So I'm just cleaning these up a little bit more. And now, like how I outlined, how I filled in that yellow, you just let it shrink right up into place. And where a stem is attached, it's okay if it fans out a little bit. They're not attached perfect. See how it fans out? So just go along and make that into a believable stem. You have to use some of your own intuition here. Your artistic. Everybody's artistic. We just have, some of us haven't discovered that yet about ourselves. I think needle felting is helping a lot of people discover their artistic side. I know it did me. I was a firm believer that I was not artistic. And I have discovered that I'm pretty creative and can see things and make them come alive in wool. So wool has a way of helping you do that. It's a really great felting medium, a really great artistic medium. Possibilities are endless, everything from little inanimate objects to fun little things like these jack-o'-lanterns to elaborate dolls, dogs, animals, very lifelike, very realistic looking, to fantasy characters, you name it. So what I'm doing is I'm just going over all of this. I'm sort of letting these fibers work down into these grooved lines, more of a believable look. I believe that's how the stems kind of go on a jack-o'-lantern, or on a pumpkin, I should say. And if your stem is too think is too fat, just keep rolling it around and compacting it. This shape can be quite dense when it's done. I'm going to take this black needle now and really work it into shape here. So just keep going along like that. You can work a curve into it, a curve, see how I'm bending it, and now I'm just going to compact it right in the middle of that curve, right in the center of it, and it'll keep that whole shape curved that way. Again, I'll give you some contrast to see. So that is it. Make sure that you can stand it up. And now we have some fun little pumpkins. This stem's still a little too fat, so I'm going to go ahead and keep needling that. Some fun little jack-o'-lanterns. Thank you very much. Have fun with your project. Make lots of fun little jack-o'-lanterns. And make sure to join me for some of my other fun needle felting video workshops. And have fun and happy felting. Thank you very much.